Hey guys, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sion. Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here with y'all. This is going to be a good one. This is a long overdue one. And thank you, Craig, for this amazing idea. But yes, we have Laura back on the show, my bestie. She's here. And Craig and I are going to talk to her about her grandfather and demystify Ike Eisenhower. Some of you know I had kind of a rare, weird experience with him in 2010, which is what led me to Laura, and I may go into that a little bit. But basically, in the short end of it, he kind of poofed in like a hologram in the middle of a conference on his birthday. And I'm not the only one who saw him. And he was in his uniform with the hat, the whole thing. And then he poofed away. And it happened to be a little bit before Halloween. So I thought, like, maybe this is a joke or something. But there were people there at the conference that saw him. And when we came back after the conference, I was like, because in my mind, I said, who is that? And I looked at Ian. It was Ian Clayton there. I looked at Ian and I heard Eisenhower, and I was like, Eisenhower. And so I had to Google to confirm to make sure, because that I know my history. But years later, I kind of ran into Laura on a show she was doing, and it kind of looped over from one YouTube to the other. And I kept looking at this lady going, who is this? This seems like I know her. It seems so familiar. And it turned out that she was Laura Eisenhower, and I had never met her and didn't know her, but I had reached out on her website to get a reading, and we connected. And then Jason Westerfield was doing something with her in Dallas, and I told him about that. And I didn't realize she's living in Montana, where I'm from. And we have a place like literally minutes from her house. And I was just like, what is going on? And yeah, we ended up meeting up on 9/11 in Dallas, and we hung out a bit and with her and her husband. And yeah, the rest is history. Now we hang out a little bit more than, not as much as lately with all the stuff going on, but yeah, this has been awesome. So welcome both of you to the show, and let's just dive in here. Who wants to start? Where are we going?
Well, basically, I wanted to do this because first and foremost, I mean, Laura, you're always on this. I don't know if it's a part of your mission or whatever, to bring the truth and to light of what actually happened with your great grandfather. It is great grandfather, isn't it?
Yes, great grandfather.
Great grandfather's administration. I mean, there is so many different stories out there. And one thing I want to say, my opinion, of course, and I'm sure you'll agree, that if there was anything untoward that your grandfather did, great grandfather, I know that you're committed to the truth. You'd call it out. You'd say. But I've read books that make reference to Eisenhower making agreements that were negative. Now, you bring a new, I don't want to say a spin, but like a new perspective on that. That nothing particularly in the political world, is black and white. Nothing is easy, particularly in the situation that Eisenhower found himself in. But why don't we just start off with just basically, with regards to agreements made. I mean, I'm referring to the MJ12 type stuff. For those that don't know, what is the kind of accusation against Eisenhower from your perspective?
Right. Yeah, so there is a lot out there saying that he signed a treaty in 1954 called the Greada Treaty. And basically what that looked like was, for exchange of advanced technology, we would be willing to give over a certain number of individuals to be abducted. And so that was, that's been the narrative being steered. When I first did presentations, I brought that information up because I didn't, I don't want to be biased. If that's something that happened, let's look at that. Let's kind of dissect that a little bit. And some, seeing the position that he was in, were saying that his hands were tied. He had really no choice because of their technology, and the Greys broke the treaty. But the more I've researched, the more I realized that actually didn't happen. He didn't have the legal authority to sign any treaties at all because of something that happened in 1952. And that was the unconditional surrender agreement under Truman. So we hear about the UFOs flying over the Capitol and this event taking place, but this is actually when the surrender happened, and this unconditional surrender agreement put into law and put into place that no president would have any kind of authority to have negotiations or sign any treaties with extraterrestrials. It was in the hands of MJ-12. And so many events took place after this that I've become privy to through people like Dan Cooper, the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance, that I've been in contact with him for quite some time. And it's important to vet people. It's important to, pay attention to any kind of red flags. And I mean, I talked to him over the course of the last year or two, and every question that I asked him, he gave me such an in-depth answer that it really began to make a lot of sense. Because Eisenhower did not want to go along with this, but the threats to anybody that would go against it was death. So what he had to do was covertly create positive military forces and begin to establish certain things with the assistance of Val Thor in order to counteract the ICC Nazi Draco alliance and unconditional surrender agreement. So I have a lot of information about that. And I can go into more depth about it, but basically we have been, or the governments have been in communications and dealings on a technological level with the government since the 1930s. And of course, this goes way deeper into the fall of Atlantis, the Anunnaki, and deeper roots of our galactic history. But when the governments really began to become involved, that was really earlier in the 1930s. Phil Schneider talks about that. So after this unconditional surrender agreement, when Eisenhower was made privy to that and he had to sort of openly comply, he started to do things like invade Dulce, and the Dulce deep underground military base is, something that we hear about the Dulce Wars later on in 1969 when Phil Schneider, the whistleblower, talked about the Dulce Wars. But in actual fact, there was an attack on Dulce way, way earlier under Eisenhower. And what it said, and what I've come to know about this, is that he ordered the first attack on the Greys, the Zeta Reticulans, in the deep underground military base at Dulce, New Mexico, knowing that he would lose that battle just to learn more about his enemy and to test his best against them. They, the U.S. Army Rangers, also the Green Berets, lost 30-1 back then. And this occurred more than a decade before the one reportedly to have occurred in 1969. So I believe that was in 1954 that took place. And then there was the invasion of Area 51 that Anonymous talks about, that Richard Dolan did an interview with. And I believe that first invasion was 1954. So those invasions and the attempted one at Area 51 didn't go so well. But what he did, put in place was the Earth Alliance and the USMC Special Section. And Randy Kramer is a person that supposedly served in the USMC, USMC, United States Marine Corps Special Section. ICC is the Draco Alliance, right? But there is something connected with the darker levels of the secret space program, something called Project Moonshadow, that was able to take those super soldiers and redirect their energies into doing something more benevolent. And that was what the USMC Special Section was all about. And it was called Ike's Force. And through the assistance of Val Thor, things like the White Hats and the Earth Alliance came about. And a lot of people that have talked about Val Thor say that the meetings with Val Thor took place way later. But what Dan Cooper was sharing with me is that Val Thor started to inform the Truman administration and Eisenhower, warning them about the Nordics and the Greys, and that the Nordics were actually in bed with the Nazis. They had been given an underground city called New Berlin and the Antarctica base and the flyover of the UFOs. And this supposed first contact was actually a psyop and a cover story. So that flipped my world around, right? I'm here for the truth, of course. And so when I thought, okay, these events about the Grada Treaty, must have happened. I've heard it through so many sources and different people that were there. William Cooper's talking about it. Phil Schneider's talking about it. And the different individuals that seem to have been witness to it. I asked Dan Cooper about it, right? Like, how could that be a false narrative. And he said that the disinformation that the Nazi Draco Alliance was bringing in was so compartmentalized that even the whistleblowers, of course, didn't have access to that greater top secret information. The president didn't have access. So why would whistleblowers be given access? Why would they allow whistleblowers to have access to the very thing that would bust them? I mean, it's enough that we know about Project Paperclip. It's another thing to know and understand that there was a surrender agreement put into place, an unconditional surrender agreement to the Nazis. So to create these false narratives would put the blame on somebody else like Eisenhower, and it would draw the attention away from this unconditional surrender agreement that they don't want anybody to know about, so that even if we were to talk about Project Paperclip with some distortions connected with that we would lose the trajectory of truth with the blame being put on a president making the deals. And so the fact that the power got handed over to MJ12 and the power of the shadow government and these 3-letter organizations, and where everything kind of morphed into the social engineering and more the mind control, the geoengineering, and all the different tactics of the war on consciousness that we're seeing in the here and now, just really proves the point that we did not win the war. But these positive military units and forces were put in place. But in order to cover their tracks and make sure that that information didn't come out, all we got was that warning in the final speech. And these deeper military units doing all they can behind the scenes until it became appropriate for them to be able to begin to disclose themselves. And that's when Randy Kramer came out. He said, this is the timing. It was signed into law under executive order that if things got to a certain point, they would be able to disclose some of this stuff. Dan Cooper said he has immunities. Val Thor had immunities. He went rogue and he was able to advise Eisenhower. And there's a lot of disinformation about some of the Galactic Federation type stuff too that we have to consider. So I'm here to lay it out on the table, not to say, oh, this is absolutely the truth. It's like, okay, there's this, but then there's this. And then there's also Lisa Renee's information about Churchill, Crowley, and Hitler being the main ones that began to have those technology exchanges for human abductions. And that was the original Greada Treaty that allowed a certain number of abductions to take place. And then it got out of control and they didn't realize what they had led the world into. And that was, in the 1930s, 1940s under Roosevelt. And Roosevelt didn't really have anything to do with it. But when you look at the Axis powers and the Allies and the mixture of those energies, which almost like funded both sides, where certain players that seemed to be on our side actually weren't. Eisenhower was the kind of person that just like was figuring this out along the way and was really blindsided. So with the help of Val Thor and also his connection with other star beings like the Dakota star beings and some of the more benevolent, forces, and being able to appeal to the guardians, he was able to kind of go more in his own direction, not being an Illuminati family bloodline, being raised as a farm boy with more Mennonite descendants, and just with this mission to, I guess, get it as far as he could possibly, take it, to then give us this sort of information at a later time. One of the pieces that has come together through a book is a migration of advanced souls that came in 1952. That a major migration of star seeds and advanced souls would come in 1952, which was the same year as the unconditional surrender agreement. And that was his relationship with the Dakota star beings that he assisted in making sure that this migration would be successful. So this book was handed to me years ago. This woman's like, oh, this belongs to you. And it's all about the Nakota, Lakota, Dakota nations and Turtle Island and the Lemurians, and that this huge migration would take place, and that his family line would be given a certain individual that was part of that migration to help bring about the truth. And that it says in the book that she's still doing all that she can to expose everything that she possibly can, along with a whole bunch of others that came in during this time and during this window. Right. And obviously there's been other times throughout history that major migrations have taken place, but this is where we feel this like teamwork, it's like, here's my role to bring to light things that have been held in secrecy, during this time. Here's everybody who's standing strong in their mission, where we're connecting the dots, where we're each holding a different piece of what the collective needs in order to rise above the tyranny and the control. Because he knew the presidency and the whole structure of government was bunk. He knew that his position as a leader was no greater than the leadership and the blueprint and the call to action that we all hold deep within our codes and our soul calling. So I really love the communications that have come through after the fact, because it really dismantles the structure of this hierarchical system that is very vampiric. So, he's just a unique kind of president, because there were presidents like him before him. But when you see what's taken place after Kennedy and Kennedy's assassination, who he briefed, and the way that our leaders have been presenting themselves as not fully in possession of themselves, with these grooming operations and just, I won't go any further, but we're obviously been dealing with the deep state version of these mascot players that have not been looking out for humanity's best interests. And I feel that changed in the last administration that we've seen. And I won't name names, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. That was a different sort of energy to begin to bring to life the real war that we're up against, that a lot of us have been aware of and born with the task to expose, which I know we all know is a war on consciousness that we can only really win within ourselves, because it's really, just trying to get us at our wounds, our vulnerabilities, our amnesia, through indoctrination programs, through every power industry that is operating in the world today. So I know that was a mouthful. Sorry, guys, you could interrupt. I hope I don't talk too much. That's a bit of a summary.
Give you the floor, basically, because like I say, I see so many times that, my dog's just walked in. Hang on. I don't know if you can see her. Say hello, Misty. There you go. I don't, because I've seen you sort of be in sort of defense mode a lot, because people are saying falsehoods about what he was doing and what he was about. So I just kind of, the purpose of doing this is just to give you the floor and say, look, bring to light what actually happened. And I think it's important because, as the saying goes, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think it's important that we know this relatively modern history, because I think it has a direct application to where we are sort of as a collective in this generation. But Sean, I'll jump in if you want to. But like I say, there was a lot of machine gun there. But just so people like who may not know, like this, and again, a lot of people that watch this show might do, but like the fact that presidents, governments are having contact with other world beings might come as news to them. But like Val Thor, for example, do you have any info on the background of who he is and where he came from, or anything like that, and what he actually did with Eisenhower? Delve into that.
Well, yeah. Val Thor from Venus. Dan Cooper, says a lot about Val Thor. And this is very much what we hear as far as his origins from folks like Frank Strange's, from Rob Potter. He's a being from, Venus. And some also connect him with Arcturians. And some would argue that that's actually not the case. So I hear a lot of different things, but one of the big things that, maybe it's always been noted that they are very Christian. Now, we're not talking about religious Christian, but very Christ oriented, not into any sort of assistance that would be like violent intervention. They're adamantly actually opposed to violence. And they're supposedly the ones that told Ike about the Sphere Being Alliance, which are the Guardians. And they connected the Guardians and submitted Ike's petition for the Guardians to help humanity. And that relates to a outer barrier being put around the planet that did not actually happen until 2014. So some SSP whistleblowers actually have mentioned that. And he verifies, or he validates the fact that those testimonies are true. It doesn't mean that where some of these folks ended up taking their stories ended up being legit. And I don't want to name names about who I'm talking about, but there has been more there about all of it in regards to the sphere beings and the Guardians. So Val Thor, Dan Cooper says, advised Ike, his species, the Venetians, however, also signed a non-interference agreement with the Draconian Empire, like so many other planets throughout so many other galaxies. But Val Thor is a rebel amongst his kind and is protected directly by the Guardians. And Dan said he has immunities like Dan has. And having immunities means there's no fear of retribution from sharing, and that retribution would be coming from the Draco Alliance. And so Valthor was able to petition to the Guardians, Valthor being a being from Venus. It seems that they are continuing to interact. They have mother ships that Frank Strange's book talks about, and other individuals like Craig Campabazzo produced A Stranger at the Pentagon, a short movie based on a true story. It even says that these ships, after he tried to assist the Eisenhower administration, did not actually leave, even though they didn't have as much success as they would have liked to have the assistance of Valthor reach humanity. It was like taken down by the shadow governments. It wasn't able to come to fruition, but they never really left. And so these ships are cloaked, one being at Lake Mead. People have recognized like an energy field in that particular area. So there's a lot of different bits of information from different sources. Some are bits and some are like very like in depth, like Stranger at the Pentagon, the book by Frank Strange's, and a lot that I'm bringing to light from Dan Cooper. And so supposedly Valthor was in communication way early on, but when he was on VIP status at the Pentagon for 3 years, when he really, really tried to work with the Eisenhower administration to kind of spread the word and create sort of this disclosure about it, all sorts of things made it like literally like impossible for that to like follow through. And I feel that that influenced Eisenhower's speech, not just the warning of the military industrial complex, but when he said it's going to take a knowledgeable and aware citizenry in order to like overcome everything that we're up against. Because, you know, a lot of people having their own personal experiences with benevolent ETs and just our own inner processes of what it's going to take to awaken, I mean, is what it comes down to at the end of the day more than anything else, because our governments have not been able to maintain enough support for those that are really here for humanity without being completely ripped to shreds or projected upon that we see in the here and now. So the fact that the ones that we're looking at for the human race that can't say anything or speak for themselves are dealing with rewritten history, you know, we're talking about the timelines shifting as of 5,500 years ago, they started to rewrite history. So yeah, I really have felt strongly about, all right, if they're trying to rewrite history, just like you said, Craig, how can we possibly heal as a humanity when we're referring to memories that have been implanted? Just like if we're trying to heal from our childhood, how are we going to possibly heal if we're reflecting on memories that never happened? So as a humanity, when we are reflecting upon rewritten history or what kids are learning in school, you know, they're like living in sort of a subpersonality, or they're reflecting on a history that they can't really process within themselves and effectively move and evolve humanity to the next level, unless they step away from it and do hypnoregression or go into their own past lives to recover the truth of what they as a soul experienced, versus being taken advantage of for the amnesia, where it's easy to just say, oh, I guess that happened. That's why we're required to do so much inner work, because our truth frequency or truth bullshit meter is going to say, wait a second, something doesn't feel right. And I felt that a lot, like reading in the science books and reading in the history books. I'm like, you know, something does not feel right. And so we can only just do our best to get to the bottom of it and exercise as much discernment as possible, develop our intuition, you know, everything I bring to light, you know, question that, and just let's be a part of the greater, bigger conversation with mutual love and respect, and lay it all out on the table and see where the common threads are, see where we can connect the dots, see what whistleblowers are saying, experiencers, contactees, and abductees, and also recognize this level of compartmentalism might give certain individuals only a small amount of access compared to what is coming to light from those that had greater access. Can we sort of put our egos to the side and sort of reboot and reset based in what new information is coming through? And so my book that's coming out is kind of laying it all out, the stuff that I used to hear about and the new stuff that's coming in. And it's like, all right, it's all out here. And this is what I've made sense out of it all. And I hope other people take it upon themselves to do the same. And then let's just talk about it and just heal together.
Right. And I mean, that's absolutely key. And I absolutely love that it's an aware citizenry that's going to sort this out. Because like you say, the suppression of information, we're all aware. If anything's highlighted that is the past few years, hasn't it? And it seems to be that something has shifted, something has broken, that people are just daily having awakening experiences. They're realizing, like I mean, I've felt it my whole life. You two probably have as well. Like, what even is this? Like, the expectations put on you at school, and the conditioning and all this. It's just like, this is nonsense. This is rubbish. It's like this intuition that we all have. It's just like, we're not made for this. There's something better than this. Sharnael, have you got any questions, any thoughts?
Sorry. I have looked into this even before I met Laura, just because of what happened in my experience, and I'll, just kind of dove in. But she brings so much more, obviously, knowing and just coming from that. But yeah, I didn't even know everything that she's saying is like new information to me. I'm taking notes, including like this documentary and whatever. Do you have any other resources that we could jump into besides the Stranger at the Pentagon documentary and your book, which I'm very excited to have out? And I think that's next year that it's coming out, right?
Well, I wish, March of next year. And so yeah, there's the Stranger at the Pentagon, the Frank Stranges, Craig Campobasso. I think Dan Cooper's information is incredibly important, and I don't think that there's much information except for what he's told me that I'm going to, put out there. Rob Potter and Raymond Keller are really incredible resources for Valthor information and things connected to Venus. And he's written quite a number of books himself.
What's his name?
Elena Denon wrote a book about Valthor called "We Will Never Let You Down." I wrote the foreword to that. Dan Cooper validates a lot of what Valthor, said to Ike. And just to kind of make this point home, when I was in a back and forth with Dan, I'm just, constantly like, are you like certain and sure because of this reason or that reason? And he is like really adamant, and he just gives me like more and more information that I think, can help us open up to the larger picture. I didn't include it all in the book, but he says Ike did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis or the Draco, not in 1955 or any year before or after, which would be like the dates of the Greada Treaty. The proof is simple. If Ike had done so, he would have guaranteed himself and his family positions in the ICC. He would have been a member of MJ12. And you personally know that Ike didn't do that because no one in your family has held any position. And we don't have our hands on any technology. And we don't have any, the proof is in the pudding, like just being raised in the family. Because I would have noticed, right? Because I'm like, anyway, he had control of the First Army and the Green Berets then, and he knew he would soon lose that control. So 1954 is a more plausible time for Ike to have ordered the attack on the Greys. And so instead of hearing that, we hear about him signing a treaty. So if you see that this is the way that the surface narratives run, is like, here, let's give you this to distract you away from what actually happened that year. He's trying to actually invade this agreement that was put in place before his administration, while the narrative is being steered that in 1954, 1955, around those dates, more 1954 is what I heard for the Greada Treaty, that's when he sold out us to the Greys. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like I said, the origins and the roots of that go way back to the 1930s, and they are more rooted in more of our galactic ancient history, and that we only hear about the Dulce Wars in 1969. I never heard about the Dulce Wars from Eisenhower, that he ordered an attack in 1954. So, and that's the thing that we have to really look at. And that's what I think the disclosure community is doing their best with. It's like, people like, I don't need to name names, they were tasked with creating a lot of disinformation that would come out as being disclosure. And the danger of that is
there's so much disinformation. That is what's so confusing. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, and no matter how well intentioned the person is, it's not about, oh, you know, they purposely did it. I mean, some might be tasked with doing it on purpose to make sure that those narratives continue to be steered. The danger of that is that those trajectories can take us easily into not just fake alien invasion kind of stuff, even though a lot are calling out the blue beam technologies, but the positive contact. There are a lot of benevolent seeming beings that are a part of the Draco Alliance that would be the solution to the problem reaction, right? That we have to be very wary of. So if we're looking at, okay, Eisenhower signed these treaties and we're getting out of this scenario that he put into place, walking along that narrative and believing in that can set people up for what is the culmination of that timeline, because timelines are connected to our belief systems. Artificial timelines are connected to belief systems that aren't in alignment with what truly happened, because it's an artificial thought form. It's been implanted. It's been cast upon, you know, humanity, whether it's through an implant or something that you read and you get so invested in that it becomes part of your creative energy manifestation enabling journey. So yeah, and that's why it's so important to like look at all this, because the events that actually took place and the things that were put in place, you know, aren't here to save the day. It requires us to do our part, because the greatest weapon is the divide and conquer. The greatest weapon is that these bioweapons are creating separation. They're targeting unity consciousness. They're wanting to keep us in a place of survival and discord so that we can achieve sacred union, integration of polarity, so that we are in this duality imbalance that archonic forces and dark entities easily feed on, because they're constantly creating psyops and destructive events and things related to weather manipulation, directed energy weapons like we're seeing with the fires. That like if we don't come together as a humanity and get out of the things that are throwing us into being pit against each other, you know, we're going to be dealing with nothing but constant assaults. And so this is the time to really, really expose as much as possible. But it's really heartbreaking and tragic that these sort of events are still happening in light of how much information has been out there for so long. What we haven't seemed to achieve is how to get along in light of the fact that all the information is there. How can we navigate this without losing the love connection and the unity that is required to overcome this? You know, we can try and figure it all out, but let's not let the intellect and the ego be sorting it all out in the lower vibration of division. And I'm right, you're wrong, you know, and because as much as we've needed to overcome the tree of knowledge and where it's been targeted with mind control and social engineering, we want to be able to look at the truth and the facts that we've discovered and weigh it against what might feel like disinformation without losing our space, which is the spiritual work we need to do to stay aligned and united and in humility and in unity and in forgiveness, self-forgiveness, forgiveness of each other, and compassion to those that might have fallen to the wayside, and not cast them as the enemy and help them like bounce back. Because look at the level of targeting. Look at some of the people that are recovering from my labs and just the SRA, you know, that might get yanked back in. I mean, in even the people that are being blackmailed that we cast out as the enemy, we need to, you know, make sure that it's part of a larger dialogue, that we encourage them to break free and be like a Kathy O'Brien, be like a Laura Worley, be like some of these individuals who can say, okay, I went through it. I did things that I would never have done if I wasn't under mind control. And I need you to understand that this is what I've been up against, because then we can begin to pull those individuals more towards us because we understand what they've been dealing with on a multi-generational level. Because it's so easy to just say they're the evil ones, they're the dark, you know, deep state. But a lot of them have been abused since childhood with these dark overlords that are the real culprits for this level of possession or abuse that has created these sort of altars. We want them to be encouraged, just like some of these brave ones that have stood up and found a way to heal and overcome. And you know what I mean? So that's, I think, a big, important step for us as a humanity. Because they're so afraid of us, you know, and I bet they want to say, I'm being blackmailed. They took footage of me. I was at an event. I was drugged. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I absolutely couldn't agree more. And I think that is crucial for moving forward, is that, you know, like I say, I've seen it so many times in my relatively short time in sort of that disclosure world. like there's still ego, like my information is better than yours type stuff. And it's like, we've got to overcome these petty issues, because there is a huge mission at hand here that I believe has already kicked off, in that there are going to be people coming into this community saying, I've been a part of this, I want to tell my story, but I've done some bad stuff. But like you say, we've got to have a lot of grace, mercy, forgiveness, and healing for these people, because like you say, a lot of it was completely against their will, but they felt like they had no choice.
Well, and to be fair, regarding my statement earlier with the misinformation, some of these guys are paid misinformation. Some of them are just ignorant. And I don't mean it like in a you're dumb way, but I mean ignorant as in don't have the knowledge, weren't informed correctly, were misinformed correctly and ran with it, and or just it's cool to go in that direction, and they get popular and then they stick with it because they're too embarrassed to change that they were wrong, once they figure it out. Which, I'm working with this guy, David Oates right now, who has been 40 years in doing reverse speech. And he basically, it's kind of like a lie detector technology where, and better even, because lie detectors can fail if you're nervous or have anxiety. But what he has proposed and or has lots of evidence on is when someone speaks forward, if you play it backwards, just like they did in the music, starting the 60s or 70s or whatever, that your subconscious actually speaks backwards the actual truth of what you're really saying. So some people speak forward and backwards the same, which is fine. But some people are speaking forward and their subconscious will tell them, hey, I'm a lie, I'm scamming you, this is fake information, like they actually say it. Well, he went even further and did like a collective, I don't know how, but some sort of collective recording or what have you of the earth. And what he found, what it came back was, there is a witch in the whirlwind. That's what it said, so clear. And the whirlwind is the biofield of the earth, and the whirlwind comes up a lot in backward speech, actually. So he's been implementing people to do a meditation that he has to invoke and or put love in the whirlwind to counteract this witch in the whirlwind, which is the misinformation, the witchcraft. Craig and I just did a thing last week with Truth Seeker on the whole witchcraft thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have a hat and a broom and you're doing stews in the kitchen. I mean, witchcraft is a lot of things, including misinformation of just tricking people and deception and what have you. So yeah, there's a lot, and so I think it's fascinating how, even though there is so much information and there are these programs and all this stuff that's, the dark stuff where people are given misinformation or programmed, or even television, entertainment, all the things that are just maybe not so much obvious programming, but they are, that we can counteract that too, just by inserting love where necessary and doing our best. Like Laura was saying, each of us individually have a responsibility to be as true and as pure, and to do our own research and to look things up. And I don't mean like on the internet, because half the time that's misinformation as well. But finding resources like what Laura's book's going to be, that's going to be a huge resource for people to actually get tangible, actual, real, factual knowledge of what's really going on that isn't misinformation. So it's our responsibility to not be ignorant, to actually take those steps and to look into the truth, whatever that is, whether you like it or not, whether it's ugly or not.
Totally. Yeah.
Can you handle the truth? I can handle the truth. It sucks though, but to be honest, Craig, I think you can feel with me, and I don't know if Laura went through this, but when I started really getting the truth about all of these different arenas, it was like depressing. I mean, it's not that it's not still depressing. There's days when I'm like, oh my gosh, and I know Laura has her days too, where we're all just like, dude, how do we win? You know, how can I even win on a personal level? Like, you know, just feeling all the heaviness and the density, and you know, it's insane. Like, what do you guys do to come above that?
You go.
Yeah, you go.
Oh man, yeah, it's really not easy. I mean, nature, animals, just trying to stay present in the now, just meditate, ground, Epsom salt baths, essential oils, just putting really good things in my body, and just knowing that that's taking care of my physical. You know, I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I slip, and it's like, okay, get back on. Forgive myself for the times where the empathic overload or the overwhelm or the just processing, just anger. Yeah, I just gotta just kind of lift yourself back up and reset. And so yeah, that's what I'm committed to. And I reset pretty quick. If I start to waver, I just can't get out of bed, or you know, it's just easier to just not want to just push forward. So when I am in that block, I let myself grieve, I let myself cry, I let myself find an outlet for the anger, because we're elemental beings. When we look at nature, you know, it rains when the clouds fill up with enough of the, you know, water vapor, water part that comes from the you know, the lakes, and just the way that nature teaches us. It can regenerate itself on a physical level. The earth regenerates itself. The regenerative power of nature. We can bounce back. We can heal. It shows us alchemy every season. You know, we go through the dark night of the soul. We come out in the spring. And just to remember all of that, you know, when we are moving through difficult energy, we need to face it head on. We don't want to push it down. We don't want to deny it. We want to express the fire when the volcano needs to blow, you know, but we want to make sure that we're directing it towards our passion, so that that fire is used in a way that can create transformation and change. So it's not just sitting there, you know, destroying your inner self and hurting others because you're acting out because you don't know what to do with it. Let all the things that are coming up in you direct you towards what is your calling, what is your mission. If it's really lighting you up, if you're really feeling reactive to it, what can you do in order to feel like you're a part of the change, that you are part of that override frequency, that you're a part of an embodiment frequency that can lift up others, that can help us to remember the larger picture, help us to let go of the fear of death, help us to also understand, you know, that whatever we go through on a soul level, whatever adversities, you know, we're infinite beings, and we're going to self-reflect on all of that. And maybe we awaken at different phases of it all, but we're all going to get there eventually. And some have come specifically to live through certain things to show the rest of us something. And, you know, so it takes a little bit to just kind of get out of the struggle of the grief, the stress, and the overwhelm. But if we look at a much, much larger picture level and how much we've already gone through as a humanity, looking at all the dark cycles of history, all the different cataclysms and genocides and exploding planets, and here we still are finding our soul family, and we keep coming back. So let's be really strong and soul centered as much as we possibly can, and as real and genuine to our elemental selves, so that we can always like purify and do the sort of spiritual hygiene, the clearing of the mental and the emotional, and the, you know, just to you know, not let it completely weigh us down. Because I find if I don't do that, the weight of it all, yeah, it shuts me down. So I like to do things that'll help to move it, bring it out, bring it up, and give me that release, and then I feel lighter, and then I'm able to live another day and continue doing the work that I do. That's kind of how I deal.
I'd be curious, those of you guys watching, to put what you do. I mean, I want to hear. This is a place where you guys can share and participate. And yeah, I'd love to know what you guys do to help through the density and the stress and just navigating all these energies and misinformation, filtering through misinformation and the truth. Craig, what do you do?
Mine is I love exercise. I love, you know, moving my body, and you know, it helps clear my head, and heavy metal music helps as well.
Yes, of course.
A lot of music, a lot of good music that really helps me. And writing music as well is very therapeutic for me.
What music?
Writing music.
Oh, writing.
Playing music is very, you know, very, very healing and therapeutic for me. But yeah, I love nature as well. I love walking. I love being, you know, physically active. getting the blood flowing, deep breathing. You know, it's very, very good for you. Obviously, physically, obviously, but mentally, psychologically, spiritually. Because if you think about it, when you are exercising, you're taking deep breaths, you're getting the deep. It's a spiritual exercise at the end of the day. When you've got you know, you can do it in meditation or you can do it physically, you know, when you're exercising, but you're getting deep breaths of oxygen. It's just replenishes you. So I love doing all that kind of stuff. One thing I just wanted to ask as well is getting back to sort of Eisenhower is something I wanted to pick your brains on, Laura, is and I've asked you this before, but I really want to delve into it a little bit. You mentioned before that he set things in motion almost covertly because he could foresee what was coming. Could you delve into that a little bit before we finish, like and how it impacts? Was that, or what I guess what I'm asking is, what we're going through today, particularly politically, is that a result of what Eisenhower signed into, you know, covertly?
Right. And it wasn't so much like a signing anything. I mean, I mean, obviously things were, it wasn't necessarily like signing something with an extraterrestrial. I just know he had a strong connection with Val Thor, and the things that he put in place were like planting seeds that would later be passed down, you know, to others. So Ike was the, hold on. So here's what I have come to understand from Jan Cooper. Ike had no choice but to openly comply with the official instrument of surrender, the unconditional surrender of the U.S. to the Nazis, signed by all of Congress and the most prominent businessmen of the period. And that date was July 19th, 1952. And so he opposed the instrument of surrender secretly by establishing various military and civilian covert units for that purpose. One of them was Ike's Force. We talked about that. USMC, United States Marine Corps Special Section, which survives today. In fact, that U.S. military unit is the most successful military unit opposing the ICC Nazi Draco alliance. He ordered the first attack on the Greys, the deep underground military base. And then he goes on to say he also established the White Hats, the first of which were Texan U.S. generals and admirals. That's where the name White Hats came from. Ike's White Hats are the ones that brought Ronald Reagan into their fold right after the Draco Alliance had him shot for attempting to disclose his SSP. And then, yeah, appealing to the sphere beings and the Guardians with the help of Val Thor, help them put an outer barrier. Well, actually encourage them to put an outer barrier around our solar system. And what that looks like is the inability for them to escape. And what I've come to understand is that they were able to look through and see through the looking glass technologies that it would be the people that take them down through their awakening, through their, and they were able to see their own demise. And in being able to see this and knowing that they couldn't escape because of this outer barrier wouldn't allow any more in, but they couldn't get out. And this would allow the positive military units to kind of corner them. They have, in retaliation, just done everything they can to bring us down and create as much suffering as possible. Through these different psyops, these different attacks, directed energy weapons, the manipulation of our weather, the use of the dark technologies that they still have. But we have to understand the dark technologies are based in what they siphon and harvest and what they steal, because they only can really battery these things up based in the life force and the adrenaline, you know, the things that they can steal through ritual abuse, through the level of manipulation that humans are under, and how that they can, you know, harvest that and utilize that to like invert things and reverse things, or to gain control over the elementals. And then just the spraying of our skies and how that can even connect with holographic technologies to create certain images of things, on top of all the other, things that connects with the dark technologies of things like 5G and what we've ingested in our bodies and what have been, you know, put into our bodies. So the biggest part of the weaponry to me is what it does to the mind and how it keeps a person in a lower vibration, because the AI can only assimilate into lower frequency energy. Once a person moves beyond the low energy, they become the de-weaponization of the weapons, because we're the ultimate technology. We're the higher technology. And so whatever they can do to lower us down to the level of a dark technology intrusion of AI, where, you know, we're not moving on the trajectory of these initiations, we're going into the trajectory of the inversion of these planetary alignments, that these certain events are created to stunt our growth in accordance with these particular events, to then throw us in a vibration of fear and panic and survival, to take us down that particular road. The more aware we are of that, the more we move through all of this, regardless of what we've ingested, what we've taken in, what we've been harmed by, we can shift that frequency, which you both know all about, because everything is frequency, right? So if they're putting a frequency that's a low energy, or there's some sort of archonic attack that throws us into a certain vibration, when we consciously work on our perception of things, when we dismantle a belief system or a reaction to the things that we're witnessing, we can begin to spiritualize our body, which will recognize what's foreign and help to release it. That's what detoxing is. So we detox our physical body through the use of high vibrational food. We can detox the mental body through high vibrational thought and coming together and supporting one another and doing things like sound healing, connecting with high vibrational music, like you said, Craig. That's like absolutely so important. And nature, you know, Mother Earth is an ascension planet. The mother energy has returned. The sun started to move through the 13th sign of Theicus. So around November, December, we moved through the energy of the ether, the mother energy, the breath of life. Look how that was weaponized to not take deep breaths, to cut that part of ourselves off, to separate and not come together. So there's always this weaponized version to something that's a huge initiation. And the bigger the initiation, the worse the psyop, usually, right? And the more like widespread it is. So if we can notice the difference and not submit, consent, or comply, then we're going through the very things that are going to upgrade our DNA, which I feel makes us become the 5D tower, where we're speaking truth, we're stepping up in vibration, and that frequency of that is going to detoxify and dismantle the dark technology that wants people to spread the mind viruses, the divide and conquer, or the belief in the tyranny because it's there to help us and support us, when in actual fact, it's not looking out for us at all. It's like witnessing a friend who's in an abusive, narcissistic relationship, but they're still like, I love him. I want to stay in this. My self-worth is dependent on it, you know? And this is the growth period that humanity has to face. Are you ready to divorce the imposter? Are you ready to know that you deserve more, that you can be a sovereign being and a co-creator of a beautiful future? And if you don't understand what this ascension window is all about, you're going to think that these times are all about a lot of the predictive programming we've seen through the movies, you know, and that we've just been groomed to be almost expected of, when we're the enablers if we allow it to infect our creative channels, because they only have the power that is given to them, and we only enable it through how it infects our creative energy, our creative imagination. So the minute we switch off of that and get back to center, we become the override higher technology, and whatever we've ingested, whatever has even been like put inside of us on any level, can be alchemized, because that higher ether energy is where spirit holds dominion over physical matter, and that turns lead into gold every time. That's why certain individuals, no matter how shot up they get, no matter how abused they've been in the trauma-based mind control or the SRAs that have done that greater work, like Kathy O'Brien, they are in the light. They have connected to that higher truth, and they have in many ways shown that if they can do it, we can all do it. They were like the testing ground, and also meant to hold altars that would hold leadership positions to lead people astray, that have been able to see through, you know, those compartmentalized aspects that were grooming certain aspects of them to be switched on to play a particular role. And they're calling out the ones that haven't completely broken free. People like Laura Worley talk about that. So anyway, we have it within us. The power of the mind, the power of our connection with spirit, is the inverted pentagram that is turned upright. The Venus transits made those connections or corrections, because it draws a perfect pentagram. And that's why I think the beings from Venus are so much working with humanity, because the planet Venus has been working so close with Mother Earth. And to me, that's the unconditional love of the mother, creating the corrections to get grounded back into the physical planet with all these benevolent forces that are in tune with that, and and who believe in us and our capacity to reconnect with our divine blueprint and save ourselves, because they're not going to do it for us. I hope that came out of it.
Amen. Mic drop. Okay, we're done.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, we're already up at the top of the hour, which is scary. That happened really fast. Yeah, I don't know how to add any more to what you just said. That was a lot, and it's beautiful. Where can people find you? Unless you have anything else, Craig. I think we're.
Yeah, well, I was just going to reiterate the fact that how important it is that we do the work to kind of raise our vibration and get into joy and happiness and love and peace. It is a literal act of war. You know, when we do that, and the powers that were are desperate to keep us down in fear and anxiety and stress and compliance. And you know, I just think having these conversations just encourages people just to remember, like, that's why we're doing this, because you know their power structures completely depend on us being in those low vibratory states. So when we're pursuing our joy and our happiness and our peace and love for everything, and love for all of humanity, we're kind of troops on the ground, and we're storming in with our flowers and hippie hair, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of conclude with that, really, that you know, I think, you know, Eisenhower would fully approve of that message, and I think, you know, the forces and, dare I say, the alliance that is really fighting these dark agendas on humanity's behalf. They can't do it for us. We're adding to their victory, basically, because it's all of our victory at the end of the day. We're all involved in this.
Yes, I just want to add, I mean, these are aspects of our higher self that are coming, you know, to us, that we can greet from that awareness that we hold. I mean, we have all this like greater DNA that it's called junk, but it holds the higher harmonic universes that is just vibrating at the level of these benevolent beings that are here to help us. And I just want to end, if you don't mind, you guys, of something that Carl Mollison channeled from Eisenhower that speaks to us all. Would you like to hear it real quick?
Please do.
Okay, so Denny Hunt interviews Carl Mollison, who channels Eisenhower, and this, you know, I'm wary of certain channelers, but you know, when you get the goosebumps and you just really feel it, and it's a beautiful thing to hear. So Spirit Eisenhower points out the potential pitfalls in assisting in humanity's shift in consciousness. All light workers leave their mark, and all have greater potential than they themselves know. The difficulty for them is not appreciating themselves enough, not understanding the truly great power they have, and this is better understood by the opposition. So when they are identified as risks and then manipulated by the dark side entities in a way to sideline them, there is a great loss to the cause, and in most cases, the individuals themselves. If sidelined early enough, they are not aware of what they would have accomplished and what they were capable of. So remember, you know, no matter how defeated you might feel, no matter what your childhood might have looked like, we all hold deep within ourselves the greater work. That is what our soul knows, right? So we want to just be soul-centered and just, you know, just don't ever lose faith in all that you are and what you came here to do during this time. And even the ones that are most asleep have that within them. So we can only really hold space and just love them and let that love just be an inspiration for them when they realize some of this stuff and it really becomes true for them, that they know that we have open arms and complete and total understanding of how painful it is to come to terms with this level of assault upon the human race, and that we're holding the vibration of unconditional love, which is what the Mother, Father, Creator holds for us at all times.
Amen.
Dang, girl, you are on fire.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, there's so much of that. Yeah. But I love you guys so much. And thank you for holding space for me to share.
Well, I hope to see you back in England doing some more big stone hugging. And I might join you next time.
I'm going to be there next time, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We got to make this happen together. Oh, my gosh, for sure.
Let's do it.
Tell us, where can we find you? Like, I know your book and all of that, but your website,
thank you. Yeah.
All that stuff.
My website's cosmicgaia.org. It would be so wonderful if you could become a subscriber. It helps me to pull together presentations and continue to do what I do. I do Zoom meetings. I do mini readings and sessions for people discounted. I have a podcast connected with that and newsletters with astro reports, and it's $15 a month. And yeah, it's super like wonderful to come together as a community. But there's also, you can still sign up for a session and check my Rumble account for the videos I put out. And some of the events coming up, yeah, there's quite a bit. But yeah, just I'll be updating my website, so check that out for some of the events. Disclosure Fest in Vegas coming up in November, Zen Festival, and Alien event in Vegas. Oh yeah, I better go update my website.
Awesome. And look, we have a membership as well. And you guys who are members, I just want to give a shout out to some of you are on here: Kathy, Debbie, Chantel, Terry, all y'all. What you do, Kristen, you guys help us to keep doing this, and that really, I just want to send kudos to all y'all for helping. And we have a couple giveaways that we're doing this month for our members, so be on the lookout for that. You can find me at drsharnael.com and or swiftfire.org. I'm on all the social media stuff. I do consultations, biofeedback, soul audits, lots of fun things, my books, my classes, all that's on the website. And Craig, we know that you have a lot of goodies for us too. Where can we find you?
Well, I've got a Facebook page. What I've noticed, actually, I actually have 2 Facebook pages, because back when censorship was rife, I had 2 accounts, and most people friend me on my alternative one, which is me in military gear, because I'm an instructor in the Army Cadets. But I actually have the other one, which is me on the drums. That's my main one, account called Craig Martin Walker. So if people want to find me there. I'm in a band called Nth Ascension. If people want to check that out, we have high frequency 432 music. I've joined another band called 10. We've got something coming up soon, which is exciting. And what else? I can't think what else, but yeah, well, I just love working with you guys. I think it's a real honor, and we must do it in person soon.
Yes. All right, guys.
Well, I can't wait to have you both on next time.
We would love that. I'm back, and I am like ready to go. I am like so tired of sitting around healing. I know it was important to do that, but I'm a little bit like claustrophobic at this time in this house. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need like connection so bad. So I miss you guys. I love you guys. We're going to be having a member meeting. We need to schedule a member meeting for this month, Craig. I'll get with you on that, but we'll be announcing that too. You guys please do share this. Like it, get it out there. If you can be a member, great. And I think that's it for the day. But you guys have a wonderful, fantastic, beautiful day. Go outside, hug a tree, pet your dog, get some sunlight, breathe, go take a walk, do some things to get really connected again, in order to break this craziness in this cycle, and just come up and breathe. It's okay. I keep hearing all these people depressed, upset, worried about what's to come, and you know what? We're the ones who choose what's to come. We're the creators of the timeline that can come before us, with every step, with every thought, with every word, with every action. And so we get to choose. We are more powerful than maybe you can even imagine. And that's the point of all of this, is to keep everybody so confused, feeling like they can't do anything, or just paralyzed. And that's not true. We are the winners. We win. So it's just a matter of getting that mindset, remembering, and doing the things that can help. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing is a lot of people, drugs, alcohol, suicide, all this stuff, because they just feel like, what's the point? And they're ready to go, and they don't want to be here anymore, or they want to dumb themselves down with Netflix all day and alcohol or whatever, just to not feel the pain. And the truth of the matter is, whoever is watching, if we detox and we get going and we get clear and we really, really, really get in alignment and remember our power, we are the ones that can change the timeline. And you have that capacity. We all have that within our body, within our mental, within our emotions, within ourselves. We have the technology to do amazing things when and if we do. So remember that. I'm in your corner, guys. We are in your corner, guys. We love you. We believe in you. And we hope for your best and highest outcome every single day. Hope you're having a great day. Love you. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.